Howdy folks, HandyMaxx and Beth here again. Today we'd like to show you about sharpening a chainsaw chain. It's not necessarily the best way, but it's the way that I've been doing it for years, and it served me well. There's lots of different ways to do it. The most popular, I guess, if you do it yourself, is to use a Dremel tool and a little guide attachment. And that takes time to clamp onto the blade down here, you know, and it's not very handy out in the woods because there's no plug-ins out there. So I learned to sharpen a chainsaw with a needle file, or a chainsaw sharpening file, and it's very easy. You just have to get the right size. This is a 3/16, and they have a 5/16 and a 7/16. That's a pretty big chain. But what I'm going to do is show you the process and tell you why I do it the way I do it. I've had a lot of success, but on most chains, now this is a little bitty chain. This is a smaller trim saw, but on most chains there's an alignment mark on the back edge of this tooth here. It's just a line that's engraved into it, and that's your saw guide. This one doesn't have it. I don't really need it because I've sharpened for so long. I know just about what angle I want, and this is a very small chain, like I said, so I'm just going to demonstrate. But before I start, the key to keeping your chain tracking true and straight, and to keeping that blade from wandering in the cut, is to keep these teeth even in length and an angle, and you know, that will increase their service life, and I'll explain that when I get into this. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you the basic way to make the filing strokes. And you always start with this bare spot on the end of the file. That's your guide, and you line it up and get your angle, and then give it a push. Okay, that's one stroke. Now if you watched that, the tip of this blade came to a sharp point with that one stroke. Okay, so this is not necessarily where I want to start. What you need to do is go and look at all of the teeth and see if you've hit a rock or a piece of metal or something. See, here's a pretty bad one right there. That's the worst I've seen so far. See how dull that tooth is? That hit a rock or something. So that's a bad one right there, and it's on the right side. So we'll keep looking. That's the worst one so far. Normally when you see a notch on one side, most all the teeth on that side will be notched, but I guess I got lucky this time. Okay, there it is again. So I'm gonna start with this one. So I'm gonna have to turn this around, or just go around the other side, and start on this side. And it's the same thing. It's a little bit different if you're not left-handed. And you can see the last time I sharpened this, I didn't get it quite right. I was probably about cross-eyed from being hot and tired. So what I've got to do is maintain this same angle and grind this until this edge meets this part of the tooth. And that may take several strokes. You put a pressure against the tooth in that direction. 5, 6, 7, 8, sorry about that, 9, 10, 11, 12, boy, I really boogered that one up. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm not going to get much more life out of this chain. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I don't know if I can do any better. I'll just have to see. That angle's not quite right though. So I was trying to fix up. These are not kind of the strokes. I'm just guessing this angle now. See that angle changing? That'll do it right there. Okay, then move to the next tooth, and I'm just gonna take a dozen strokes on each one. That tooth there will be a weak length. You notice I only go forward. I don't pull the file back, and then every now and then I'll clean that file. And the reason I do that is to keep that file in good shape and make it last, because these things aren't real expensive, but they aren't real cheap either. Okay, now I'm going to switch and go to the other side and show you that angle, and then talk about the saw a little bit more, about preparing it to go to the woods. Once again, it's the same trick. Maintain that angle. I have to get a new chain before too long. This is the first chain that came with this saw, so I've done a pretty good job. That tooth is in pretty good shape. You'll notice I'm trying to maintain that same angle on each tooth. That'll make it cut straight and it won't wander. Okay, I'll finish up the sharpening later before we do the sawing demonstration, but now what I'd like to show you is the safety features on this saw and explain why you don't want to defeat those features and keep this thing in good shape. This is a kickback preventer, and if you can hear that, it makes quite a noise when it goes off, and what that does is it breaks the engine and stops that chain right now. So I've seen people take these off because they're unhandy, but I tell you what, I've had them save me more than once. So don't do that, folks. Before you go into the field with a saw, you need to make sure it's got gas and oil, and this is a 2-cycle like most chainsaws, and it's got a gas fill and an oil fill. And don't get those two mixed up because it'll ruin your day. It won't ruin your saw necessarily, but it's not going to run good for a while. This little saw here is a Husqvarna, and it's one of the cheaper models. It's a kind of a hybrid. It wasn't all put together in Switzerland. But anyway, you need to make sure that the chain is tight before you get started. Come on here. In this model, most of them you've seen the little key wrench with a screwdriver tip, and there's a slot here, and you loosen the nuts and then tighten that until the chain gets tight. Well, see, right now this chain's just a little bit loose. It's not bad. It would probably work like that, but I'd like to tighten it just a hair. Now on this model, it's really handy how you do this. You don't need a tool. You loosen that nut there, and it's got a little kick notch here, and you just run that notch down. It says go that way for a tightening. We'll give it one click and see what it looks like. That's a little bit less. Okay. Oh, it's a little tight. There we go. I'm crippled up, so I'm a little bit slow here. That's a little bit tighter, isn't it? Yeah, that's going to work. You want to be able to pull that chain up to where it'll just about clear the bottom of that drive tooth on the bottom of the chain. And this one's just about there. So you start out like that, and it's going to cut nice and true as long as your teeth are straight. So that's it until we get out there and start cutting the tree down. There's a couple of them out there. We're going to do a demonstration of that next. So stay tuned.